My name is Maya. At 18, I stood on the front lawn of my childhood home, watching my belongings, textbooks, clothes, a framed photo of my late mother, tumble onto the dewy grass. My father's silhouette filled the doorway, his voice a low growl that carried across the quiet street. "You're not making the same mistake under my roof." The mistake was me, his daughter, pregnant. The bitter irony was that my father had become a teenage father himself at 17. He'd spent my entire life wielding his hard-won success as a warning. Don't ruin your life like I almost did. Yet when I stood before him at Sunday dinner with my supportive boyfriend Jake beside me and announced we were keeping our baby and getting married, he didn't see history repeating. He saw his own shame reflected back at him, and he resolved to crush it before it could prove him wrong. My father, a respected auto shop owner in our small, conservative town, and my stepmother, Linda, met my carefully laid plans with nuclear rejection. "You're just like me at your age," he'd shouted, slamming his fork down. "A complete screw-up." Linda's addition was colder, sharper. Some people never learn from their parents' failures. Their version of tough love was exile. Within the hour, I was homeless. But their campaign to force me into their narrative of failure had only just begun. The public shaming was methodical. At church, my father stood during prayer requests and asked the congregation to pray for my poor decisions. Every head swiveled to pin me in my pew. He called my future nursing school just to inform them of my pregnancy, thinly veiling his attempt to sabotage my admission. When I lost my part-time job at the local bookstore, the manager cited concerns about reliability she'd heard from my dad. Meanwhile, the town rallied around him. He was praised at the hardware store and the diner for standing firm on his values, for not enabling me. His business thrived on the sympathy. I became the town's cautionary tale, and he was the principled patriarch teaching a hard lesson. What they didn't see, what they refused to see, was the intricate web of support and planning Jake and I had woven in secret. While my father was giving interviews to our community about his disappointment, we were in meetings. My high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, became my silent guardian angel. When my father called her, probing for information to block my path, she cited student privacy laws and shut him down. Instead, she guided me through applying for independent student status, unlocking scholarships and grants reserved for students in crisis. She was the one who discovered my father had been intercepting my mail. Acceptance letters, financial aid packages, all stolen to maintain his illusion of my inevitable downfall. "This is illegal," she whispered, her eyes blazing with protective fury. She helped me secure a P.O. box that same day. Then there was Sarah Mitchell, director of the local women's center. She reached out after hearing my story through Mrs. Rodriguez's discreet network. "I've mentored dozens of young mothers through college," she told me over coffee, her voice calm and certain. "Your father's experience doesn't have to define your future." She helped me access housing assistance, connected me with a network of student parents, and, most crucially, warned me of my father's final, desperate play. He planned to call child services after the birth to question my fitness as a mother. Her warning allowed me to preemptively document every support system, every plan, every resource we had in place. Jake's family became my sanctuary. His parents, embodying a quiet, steady love my own home lacked, offered to co-sign loans, provided a temporary home, and promised childcare. Jake himself, far from the irresponsible boy my father painted him to be, was accepted into a community college automotive program and secured a job with benefits. The turning point came 6 months later. I returned to my father's house to retrieve vital documents, my birth certificate, social security card, needed to finalize my college enrollment. I thought he was at work, but his truck rumbled into the driveway as I was leaving. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his old anger simmering. "Getting my documents for school," I said, holding my ground. "School?" he barked a laugh. "Finally ready to admit this was a mistake?" Actually, I said, pulling the thick envelope from my bag, I'm enrolling in the accelerated nursing program next month. I handed him the sheaf of papers, my acceptance letter, the scholarship confirmations, the detailed plan outlining my course schedule alongside the on-campus childcare arrangements. I watched his face as he scanned them. Confusion first, then disbelief, then a dawning, unsettling realization. The evidence was irrefutable. I had housing assistance, Jake had a job with full benefits. A village he had never acknowledged was holding me up. They're just telling you what you want to hear, he muttered, but the conviction had bled from his voice. Maybe your experience isn't the only possible outcome, I said quietly. Then I went further. I know you've been stealing my mail, Dad, and Sarah Mitchell told me you plan to call child services. The words landed like physical blows. He sank onto the front steps, the fight draining from him, replaced by a hollowed-out weariness. I was trying to protect you from making my mistakes, he whispered, not meeting my eyes. You were trying to make me live your regrets, I corrected, not with anger, but with a clarity that had been hard-won. In that moment, I saw him not as an imposing authority, but as a man forever haunted by his own past, so terrified of its echo that he tried to orchestrate my failure to vindicate his own struggle. 2 years later, I walked across the graduation stage in my nurse's pin and cap, my honors cords draped over my shoulders. In the audience, my healthy toddler sat on Jake's lap, clapping with pudgy hands. We were married, living in our own home, both of us launched into stable careers. The narrative of our small town had subtly shifted. The same people who had praised my father's tough love now questioned his judgment. His reputation, once bolstered by community sympathy, bore the tarnish of his actions. My father attempted reconciliation, but the bridge was fragile. I established firm boundaries. True healing, I told him, would require him to confront his own projected shame, not just apologize for its consequences. Our relationship, if it was to exist, would have to be built on new ground where my success was not a rebuke of his past, but simply proof of my own future. He had seen my pregnancy as a catastrophic first scene of a tragedy he'd already lived. What he failed to understand was that I was writing a different story entirely. He kicked me out to teach me a lesson about responsibility, but in doing so, he taught me a far more powerful one, that sometimes the most unwavering support comes from outside the walls that are supposed to shelter you, and that the past's most painful chapters don't have to dictate your future. They can simply be the prologue to your strength.